Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, students, parents, RUMC colleagues, and welcome to another informative episode of the Go Beyond Keynote Speaker Series. This series is exclusively brought to you by RCSI and UCD Malaysia campus as we commemorate 25 years of excellence this year in delivering high-quality medical education. Just for your information, we started our first keynote session in July, and this will be our third session. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Kasturi, the PR and Communications Specialist at RUMC, and I'm glad to be your moderator for today. And before we get started, let me run through with you a few items so you would know how to navigate around the platform. You should be able to see your attendees interface on your computer desktop on the right-hand corner. And by default, you're listening to this session using your computer speaker system, and you will be put on listen-only mode. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to our speaker by typing them out on the questions tab in the control panel. And please feel free to send in your questions at any time during the event. Now back to the main topic for today, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Ever since its surge in 2019, the world was left in a state of uncertainty. Malaysia confirmed its first case on January 25, 2020, and the first Malaysian was confirmed positive COVID-19 on February 4, 2020. And since then, we have been cultured with the daily announcement of the total cases, where an increase in cases means a bad and worsening condition, and a decrease means otherwise. However, in public health, there are other metrics used to assess the progression of an outbreak, such as the fatality or death rate, the morbidity rate, the number of hospitalizations, and so forth. And without further delay, I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, who will be sharing with us more about COVID-19 and its vaccination phase that Malaysia is currently going through. We have with us Dato Prof. Dr. Abdul Rashid Khan. Dato Rashid graduated with a medical degree from the University of Peshawar, Pakistan. He obtained a postgraduate diploma and master's in health science from the Edith Cowan University in Perth, Australia, followed by a PhD in community health from the National University of Malaysia. He is currently the professor and head of public health department at RUMC. Besides that, Dato is also the adjunct professor in University College Dublin, Ireland, and University of Western Australia. He's also a visiting research fellow in the Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University, Japan. Now, having over 90 peer-reviewed publications, books, and chapters in books, being a member of numerous editorial boards of medical journals, Dato Rashid is well known for his keen interest in community outreach projects. He has been very actively involved in research, health promotion, and education and social well-being projects in rural Kedah and Penang, as well as among the Orang Asli community in Perak. And in 2017, he was awarded the prestigious Darjah Setia Pangkuan Negeri by the Governor of Penang for his community work, which carries the title Dato. And today, Dato Rashid is going to share with us more on the COVID-19 vaccination, mainly on the different types of vaccines used in Malaysia, the vaccination rate, as well as the concerns around it. And without further ado, I welcome Dato Rashid to take over the session. Dato, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kasturi. You were left out of breath introducing me. I would like to think that's a good thing. So hi everyone. Welcome to this session. Today's session, we're going to talk about to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. If you only have 10 seconds and you have to leave right now, vaccinate. But if you have a bit more time, why don't you spend it with us, and we'll go through a little bit on what we want to discuss, that is the vaccines and the problems from the vaccines, and probably some questions you have around the vaccines, and let's see if I can help you with that. We understand that majority of the audience is the general public, so what we're going to do is we're going to make it as simple as possible so that it's not going to complicate. All right, so let's start with the first slide. I hope you can see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. So, COVID-19. Now, this is caused by the severe acute respiratory coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 virus. How can I minimize this? Just 1 minute, just give me a minute. I'm having a bit of problem. I can see my face, but I cannot see my slides. So. Okay, I hope you can still see the slides. So it's called by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Initially, it was known as the novel coronavirus, but now we have changed the name and called it SARS-CoV and COVID-19. So what is it actually? It's a virus. It's one of the many families of viruses that are out there. And it is actually, it has protein, it has RNA, it's enclosed nicely in a lipid envelope. And you see the small spikes that you can see out, which is very famous. I think by now everybody recognizes it. Those are called the spikes. That's what we're going to be talking a bit more a bit later. Now, right. So coronaviruses are actually a group of viruses. I remember earlier in the outbreak, and there was a lot of conspiracy theories, and I think one of it was this Dettol bottle, and they had that it's effective against the coronavirus, and everybody came out, aha, how did everyone know about this coronavirus in 2015 or the year 2000 and then? Well, because it's a group of viruses, it's a family of viruses. It's a family of viruses, meaning that I don't know why it keeps moving. So it's a family of viruses. It has a lot. It has this alpha, beta, gamma, delta. It's very common in animals. If you have pets, cats, and dogs, and you'll find that they might get coronavirus, but it is not the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's the general family coronavirus. Even in humans, you do get coronavirus, which is the common cold. You get a bit of bronchitis and stuff. So it's nothing exceptional. That's or something new. No, it's a whole family of virus. But then you had these new coronaviruses that was coming out, like the SARS-CoV. That was the first SARS part 1, if you want to call it. And then we had the MERS-CoV. We had this Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which you get from camels. And so now we have a novel coronavirus, and we have called it SARS-CoV-2. Now, this is a new virus, but it's in the family of coronavirus. Now, it started off, I remember I was in Vietnam doing a research there, and I was reading through papers, and 9 cases of respiratory virus, unknown virus, has caused death. And when I first read it, I said, oh God, I hope it's nothing serious. Unfortunately, what I hope didn't turn out. We have more than 200, and this is from yesterday's data, 233 million people have been affected, and 4.7 million people have died because of this. So you can imagine how serious it is. And it doesn't look to be slowing. Every time it looks to be slowing down, and then you get a new wave that comes out. But remember, 233 million or 4.7 million deaths are not actual deaths, are not actual numbers, because there are a lot of countries which do not record numbers. There are a lot of cases which are subclinical, which are not ticked as a case. And then, of course, you have death. Not every country requires you to report death. So, for example, in India, the number of deaths which we believe have been reported are much lower than what the actual numbers are. So what about in Malaysia? Well, we have 2.2 million cases, and we have about 26,000 deaths as of yesterday. So those are very serious numbers, aren't they? And unfortunately, Penang, the number of deaths per population is very high. I think it is the highest in the country. And as I said, the number of cases is not really what you would actually is out there. So, but what matters a lot is how many of these cases are showing severe symptoms, severe meaning that they are ventilated or end up in the ICU. Well, as of yesterday, we have this data which you can get from COVID now, it's available. So you can see that the utilization rate of ventilation is about what, 48%? It's almost 50%. And the utilization of ICU is more than 64%. That's quite a big number, which actually is coming down. So imagine when it was at 90 something percent, how serious it is. So what does this coronavirus do? Well, coronaviruses, like most other viruses, they attach to the cell that you have, and then they go into the cell. So remember the spike I was telling you about? So it has, your cells has got a receptor, so the spike meets the receptor, and then it gets through it, and then it goes into your cell. So it is, of course, not as easy as that. Of course, it has to have evolved before it is able to sorry, I'm having some technical difficulty with my right. So before it can match to your cells and to be a perfect fit that the virus is able to enter your host. So now this virus is interesting in the sense that it uses your own cells to replicate. It makes more cells, more coronaviruses from using your cell, and when from this loads of number, it breaks the cells and then it goes into the next cell. So you can imagine how fast it is moving. So, but in generally, most viruses do that. So they enter your cells, they use your cells to replicate, to make more of themselves. It is a zoonotic infection. I want you to remember this is a zoonotic infection. What is a zoonotic infection? It means that it is being transmitted from animals to humans, and that's called a zoonotic infection. So it did not just suddenly appear from nowhere. It is because of our human nature, is us in our close contact with animals, which is because of our deforestation and our greed and hunger for exotic meats, that we get all these animals coming together, and then this viruses, which are normally in say bats, are transmitted to other animals, and then the other animals to humans. It takes a long time before the virus is able to fit, to have a perfect fit into your cells, that it is able to move in. So it takes a period of time. It didn't just evolve over time, just in a short period of time, and that's it. It takes a long period of time before it evolves. So it has been going on some time before this happened. Now, is this the first pandemic that we're having? No, we had a lot of pandemics in as far as we can remember. Of course, the plague was the one that's the biggest. It's killed millions of people. But the one that we remember is the one that we know is smallpox. Well, at least the older generation will remember smallpox. Before it was eradicated, it's estimated at what 56 million people. And then we have, of course, the latest one is SARS. There were 770 people. But SARS, the mortality rate, that means the number of people who get infected and the number of people who die, is very high. It's about nearly 70%. That means out of 10 people who get infected, 7 are probably going to die. Whereas in the present SARS part 2, if you want to call it, it's more around about 3%. So for it's less than 1% that's going to die actually. So you can imagine the number. However, it is a lot more infectious. That means a lot of people getting infected. So even 3% out of millions of people that's getting infected. So you can see the number of death is quite high, and that's no small matter, right? Now, if you even if you look at these pandemics that were caused, a lot of it is actually caused by zoonotic infections. That means through animals. HIV, the influenza virus, Ebola, MERS, the SARS, all these are caused by animals. And in this case, we're going to talk about coronavirus. The animals are actually coming from the bats. Now, from the bats, these viruses mutate, meaning that they change to fit, to adapt to humans. Now, the MERS-CoV was through camels. The first SARS was through the civet cat. We're not sure about the second. Most probably at the moment, it is still considered as pangolins. So most probably that's it. So bats actually have a lot. Even Ebola is from bats, and this Marburg disease. Lately, there was a few cases of Marburg disease in Africa. It's another hemorrhagic disease where it's worse. It's like Ebola. You know, people bleed and die. But it's not as infectious as it is SARS-CoV-2. However, now, before you get excited and go out and start whacking all the bats, no, we need bats, okay? They're very important. They are the ones who disperse seedlings, so you know they're very important for biodiversity, and they're actually good because they eat a lot of insects and stuff. They're very important. It's just that we are the problem. We get close to animals, and then you know what happened in this case, SARS-CoV-2 was, you know, the epicenter we believe is the Wuhan wet market, where you know there were all kinds of exotic animals there, you know, bats and pangolins and you know, crocodiles and snakes. And so these living animals, they transmit virus just like you transmit your common flu or running nose or all this stuff, your virus to your friends and colleagues who are close to you. Same animals do. But because of the exchange of these viruses, they can mutate and become something adaptive. Now, this is very important because if you want to talk about stopping, there's going to be SARS maybe 0.3. You know, now we have 2, and then you might have 3, and then you have completely different virus, something that's more deadly like Ebola. Imagine what's going to happen then. That's how serious it is. So if you want to stop, we need to go back to our roots. What is the problem? The problem is we are in too close contact with animal, especially wildlife. You know, including, you know, deforestation. Cutting down Penang Hill to make farms is another bad idea. You know, these are the things that we really have to get involved with. Now, imagine if you're talking about those days, if you're talking about the plague and all this stuff, or the Spanish, I better be careful, Spanish influenza. I don't want to say Spanish something else. So Spanish influenza, when, you know, travel was difficult. Look at this. This is just a snapshot. Just a snapshot. Make one snapshot. When these are all the yellow dots are airplanes moving at one moment of time. One moment of time, and they're moving. It's amazing. Just pop a snapshot so you can imagine how travel is. And you can get, if you're getting infected in China and next day you arrive in Dublin and boop, and that's it. You just transmitted infection to Dublin. So you can see that how it has spread, and we have made it a lot easier. You know, now everyone can fly, so can the viruses. So can the viruses. So at the beginning of it, we were all very depressed, and you know, I was hoping that the virus will mutate to such an extent where it doesn't become infective or lethal anymore, just like the first SARS-CoV virus. But unfortunately, that didn't occur. So then I was really hoping for a vaccine, and now vaccines are out. And so it really gets me depressed when I see people objecting to vaccines. We do not have a treatment. We are trying a lot of drugs. A lot of them are repurposed drugs, meaning that they were meant for something else, but now we are using it for something else. I'm still hoping. There was news that in Japan and some other places there are some drugs that they're trying. One of it was, I read it and I was laughing, is one course of treatment 7 days is about 1,700 USD. How many people are going to afford that? So vaccines are something that's been around for a long time. So please don't get confused that all vaccines are not safe. You know, it's not new. You know, the principles are so easy. Jenner actually used this, and he used this cow pox. Cows used to get, like we used to have smallpox, so cow pox. Used to use that, and then kind of what do you call, inoculate people using just pinpricks on the skin to get them to form antibody. Where he probably didn't know was antibodies against smallpox. But if you read history, for hundreds of years in China, they were already doing it. In the Middle East, they were already doing it, So although they didn't have the science behind why it was working, but they knew it worked. So it's not something new. It's basic, very basic science. So in Malaysia, we're doing, I think, pretty well. The whole adult population has been vaccinated. We're about to reach 90. I'm looking at it every day. Can't wait to cross borders. Because I've got some research work, just in case you're thinking, am I going for holidays? No. And the fully vaccinated Malaysians, 61%. This is yesterday's data. I'm not sure what's today. So that's very good, actually. It's a lot better than a lot of developed countries. But it's going to reach, I was telling people a lot earlier, we're vaccinating full blast, and then suddenly you're going to see the numbers are going to drop. Well, there's a lot of reason why the numbers are going to drop. Either people want to get vaccinated, but they are not sure where to get vaccinated. I'm talking about rural people living in rural areas, all coming to town and getting vaccinated and going back. It's just going to cost a lot of money. Or people who are not sure, those fence sitters who are like, should I get vaccinated? I've read so much about the side effects. I'm watching WhatsApp videos, and well, what's on WhatsApp got to be true, isn't it? So these are people, but then of course you have those hardcore anti-vaxxers. You can debate, you can talk, you can advise, but that's about it. Nothing much, I guess, we can do beyond that. So you'll never get 100%, that's for sure. But to understand what's vaccine and how they work, first we need to understand a little bit about your immune system. What we're using here when we're using immunization is we're using an artificial artificial adaptive immunity, meaning that you're actually encouraging your body, you're priming your body to produce immunity against virus, bacteria, and so on and so forth. Of course, we can also transfer antibodies and give them, but that works for a very short time. Or you can get infected and you will have antibodies, so it will last. For SARS-CoV-2, for COVID-19, it's a bit conflicting. A lot of data is showing that the active, that means you get infected and your body produces the immunity, it doesn't last as long as artificial immunization, meaning that if you get vaccinated. But there is another data that is suggesting that maybe we are not looking at what we should be looking, which is this. This is your adaptive immunity. For the general folks out there, don't worry about this. It's just a busy slide. It's just to impress you that, doctors know something. For all the other medical students and colleagues, so I'm sure you know this, so I don't need to go to. So when you get infected, what happens? Your body fights the organism. All your soldiers are going to go out, your police, and going to go and whack the hell out of that virus and try to kill it as much as you can. But of course, they are not well prepared. They don't know what are the special kung fu skills of this particular virus. So it gives them a bit of time. That is why when you get even fever, it takes a few days. Even you don't take antibiotics, most of the cases you don't need antibiotics, and you get well after a few days, because it takes a few days for your bodies to start producing antibodies to kill off those foreign invaders who are coming into your body. So you can have B lymphocytes and T cells which are killing them, and then stuff like that. But for immunity's sake, there's something more important, and that's these T cells. They're known as memory T cells. These are the people who like you, when you have lent out even 10 ringgit, you'll never forget that 10 ringgit. So these are that T cells, So these are the people who are actually the cells that remember, and because they remember, so the whole process, if they get a secondary infection, it's going to be boom. So they produce the antibodies which are very specific, all with the specific kung fu skills to wipe out that foreign invaders. So these memory cells are extremely important. Now, when you measure antibodies, you're just measuring the antibodies. So this is a bit tricky. So where are we measuring the right antibodies? If you remember, the Honorable new Minister of Health was talking about, please don't measure antibodies because you're going to get depressed and you go measure, hey, I don't have antibodies anymore. The vaccine just lasted for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But are you measuring the right form of antibodies? Are you looking at just the antibodies? Is there a way to measure, do you have the memory cells, T memory cells, which are the most important? These are the people, these are the cells, I'm not calling people, these are the cells that are meant to keep in mind what's happening, you know. Right, I remember this, and the next time I see this, these are the cells, the antibodies that I'm going to produce that's going to wipe out that organism. So that's how vaccines actually work, is to prime your body. So meaning that you get the first dose. So what is the first dose? You just get a portion of that antibody of the virus, or something that's genetically close enough, very close, very, very close, that your body knows that, okay, this is the virus that, you know, I want to fight off. So what happens is, when you get the first vaccine, so now your body is beginning to recognize. So your body is beginning to develop the antibodies against this foreign invader, and your T cell starts remembering. Okay, I gotta remember this particular virus is not a good virus. I gotta, the next time I'm gonna get. So you get another second dose. And when you get a second dose, now your immunity is much better. So if you get an infection, the response is going to be so fast, it's going to be so huge, it's going to be so amazing that the virus is gone. But in most cases, immunity doesn't last long. Just like you and me, our memories tend to forget. So that is why you need boosters in most of the case. You need boosters in most of the cases in vaccines. So now there's a lot of controversy, and I'm reading friends are sharing things like, you know, oh, you see boosters, and you know, when is this ever going to end? It's not the fault of the vaccines, it's the fault of the virus, it's the fault of the humans, you know, coming too close in contact with animals. The vaccines are supposed to help you, keep you alive. So very good news is that more and more countries are developing vaccines. More and more countries are coming up with vaccines, which are amazing, which is good. Thailand, I think next year, Vietnam, end of the year, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia as well has started. This is good news. Why? Because the cost is going to come down. It's going to be a lot cheaper if we are going to start living with, you know, COVID-19. And my prediction doesn't come true that, you know, the virus is going to mutate itself out, then we're going to need booster shots. I mean, in Malaysia, booster shots are something that's, oh my God, is boosters. But if you live somewhere in Europe or China or Japan, Korea, booster shots are common for influenza viruses. So you get booster shots. Every year you get booster shots. So there are many different types of vaccines. I'm not going to go into detail, but basically it's the same thing. You have inactivated. That means the viruses which have no longer have the ability. It's just like you have a big tiger. You have removed all the teeth and the claws. It's just a big pussycat. Nothing else than that. So so basically it's inactivated. Or you have a subunit. You just use a small portion of the virus. You know that the body can identify this as a part of the bigger virus when you get the next time. So this technology is old. This technology has been used and tested. So it's been using all of you have been vaccinated. I'm very sure. I have been vaccinated. You use this old technology, so it's nothing new. So you get most of them are using that, but the new technology is the one that's actually I think a lot of people were very worried and wondering, oh my God, you know, is it safe? They made it so fast, you know, messenger RNA vaccines, the one from Pfizer and the one from Moderna, you know, they just got it up. How can a virus be? Well, no, do you know that this is a new technology? Yes, but it's been out from the 1990s. They've actually been giving it to animals, and they have been testing it even before this on Ebola and quite a number of other deadly viruses, including HIV. So they have been testing it. The technology has been there. It's just that when uh, when COVID-19 came around, they said, okay, let's use this technology. As usual, we're always very scared of technology. I remember when I was young, and this your window in a car, you used to wind it up, and when the new technology came, everybody started using automatic process to wind up the screen, and that stage everybody was like, oh my god, how can you do that? It's going to get stuck, the rain is going to come in, you're going to have. So now, I mean, can you imagine ever buying a car and having to wind up? Nobody will buy a car. This technology, of course, you might be a bit worried, but look at all the technology, your telephone, your computers, and look at us, we're online. You wouldn't have thought about this 30 years ago. So it's a new technology. It's something to embrace. Of course, it's a new vaccine, so of course there are concerns. I agree, but it's not difficult. What it does is it uses an RNA vaccine. It's an RNA, not DNA, please. It's an RNA vaccine, and what it does is it's programmed for your cells to produce. Remember that spike protein I was telling you about, that small thing that's jutting up from the cells, to produce that. That's it. It cannot recreate the virus. It cannot. It just has a portion of it. If nothing happens, nothing happens. But what does happen is that your body recognizes it as it's a foreign body. I don't know what this is, so I'm going to produce antibodies against it. So the same thing. The first time you get a number. Your T cells remember. The second time you get, and then your whole preventive action. Your antibodies and your T cells are more primed to it, and then they know what's happening. Now, whether booster is needed or not, well, that's a whole different thing. We can discuss about that a bit later. So how about the vaccination acceptance rates? Well, the vaccination acceptance rates are really good. If you can look at me, I'm turning around. Is it because of my cat? He keeps coming in and out. Okay, so the Malaysian acceptance rate is pretty good, but as in most countries, you have people who are worried. Genuinely, I understand. I was worried as well. You're worried about the side effects because it has never been used before. Well, there's always a first time for everything. And you're worried about the efficacy. Now, how well does it work? Now, efficacy is a whole different thing. Efficacy means its ability. Please don't confuse this with efficient. Our colleagues, journalists, they tend to get that confused and use the word efficient. It is not. It's efficacy. So if you have a Moderna or Pfizer vaccine that says it's 95%, that means it's 95% ability to reduce your chances of getting an infection. Now, what efficacy we are talking about is a whole different thing. I can tell you. Well, you can talk about efficacy against infection. That means you don't even get the infection. We know now that it's not true because even you're vaccinated, you can get infected. Or is it your efficacy against even mild forms, cough, running nose, sore throat? Well, that depends on the data. But what we do know that its efficacy is high and very, very good in all the vaccines. Some are 60%, some are 70%, some are even 90, 80% against death and hospitalization, which concerns you, isn't it? I mean, who doesn't get cough, running nose, sore throat at least once or twice a year? You don't end up in the hospital, so that's fine. But of course, there are others who have decided, I'm not going to take it. Now, why you don't want to take it is against side effects. Now, the very small percent are those who believe in conspiracy theories. Now, conspiracy theories are very difficult. I mean, they're fun to read. It's enjoyable, this conspiracy, that conspiracy. But be realistic, understand. I mean, some things like when I was reading, I thought it was very funny. It was Bill Gates, he wants to reduce the population of the world. I just found it very funny. And as a businessman, I mean, he makes more money if there are more people buying his, there are more consumers buying his product. I mean, why would he want to reduce the population of the world? I mean, some of the things that we really have to think about and understand. And of course, if you look at, this was earlier, a lot of people were adamantly, I'm not going to take it. But thank God it has changed and more people are. So the question, a lot of questions is, how can I be sure that it is safe? Well, if you ask me, the question today is, you are safe considering that, more than almost 3 billion doses of vaccines have been given out. But there are side effects. There are side effects for everything. You take penicillin, you can be allergic to penicillin and can kill you. You can be allergic to seafood. If you're living in Penang, that's a very sad thing. You can be allergic to seafood and you don't take it, because it can kill you. There are, and the acceptable rate is that 1 to 1 million. That means there should be one, not there should be, the most we accept is there's 1 to 1 million. That means 1 million doses given, maybe one serious side effect. We can't help that because we're looking at the majority. We have to, a doctor's job is to understand, to balance between benefit and the risk. If the benefit is large, we can reduce death, hospitalization, more severe morbidity, meaning that people get severe form of serious illnesses, then we should proceed with it. And now, of course, there's another thing, it's going in mRNA, DNA, and all that, DNA, mRNA, and stuff like that. It's going to me, it's going to change my. It doesn't go into your nucleus at all. It does not go into your nucleus, so it cannot change. In fact, the RNA vaccine, it only lasts a few days, a week at the most, and then that's it, it's gone. Its job is just to prime your antibodies get excited, come and do its job. That's it. It's not meant to, it will not make antibodies. It will not make your cells stronger. It's just prime your immunity. That's it. Why should I be a guinea pig? You're not guinea pigs. They have already tested it. They have already tested it. They have plausible science, very strong science behind it. So you're not. And then, of course, the Bill Gates and, the government doesn't have chips. I mean, if there is a chip, I'd rather put one in me, because places where I work in the Billum Forest, I can get lost and you'll never find me. So I got no problem. But there is none. There is none. There's no chips that have been put in you. What are the ingredients? It is there. It is there, So you can try to make people understand, but of course it's very difficult. So when you're taking information, please understand who you're talking to. If the person has got no science background, you're taking a regular blogger, everybody has an opinion, but what about, is there any science behind it? You have to make yourself, maybe stay away. If you're not so sure, stay away from misinformations. Stick to what information that the science is giving you. You don't trust the government is giving you, but fine. But don't tell me all the governments in the world are lying to you. All the World Health Organization, the institutions and all are lying to you. Very unlikely, isn't it? So these are facts that you can get yourself. Empower yourself with knowledge, information. Not only for vaccine, I say for everything else. So is there something that you should be concerned of? I'll tell you what I was concerned of. I was concerned of two major things. One is called this thing called antibody enhanced immune response. Okay, don't worry much about it. If you're not careful in making your vaccine, what can actually happen is that it can actually promote the virus easier entrance into your cell. So this has happened when they did with the dengue vaccine. I can't remember which particular company that made it, and there were about few deaths. So instead of them getting some mild form of dengue, they ended up getting serious form of dengue. It was in Philippines and they stopped it immediately. But I'm not concerned about this anymore because, as I said, billions of people have it, already had been vaccinated. So if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. So it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So this is where, the science of creating a vaccines, you go through phases, you go through animal trials, then you go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. As you progress in your phase, the number of people that you're trying on, we're talking about 30, 40, 50,000 people, different backgrounds, different race, religion, and well, religion may be the food that you eat, and different ethnicities, gender, and all people with different comorbidities is all tested out. Then it goes into the market. It doesn't end there. It doesn't end there at all. What happens then is that now you have the real world data. People are looking at the data and looking at, what is happening, what are the other side effects that are coming up. So it's being monitored all the while. The other one is the nanoparticles, which, people saying, oh, it's nanoparticles, these are the adjuvants that are coming. These adjuvants are important. They actually get your immunity excited, they get your body excited to get it more attracted to the viruses. So these are part of something that it is being used, and it has to be used. Okay, I think I've exceeded. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'm sorry I exceeded. I just got excited and giving you this lecture.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dato, for that really brief sharing on the COVID-19 pandemic. Your data sharing was really impressive, and you managed to take us through and let us know where we are at the moment with the vaccination, with the rates. And it's really good to know that 61.5% of the population in our country has been fully vaccinated as of 29th of September. And we are currently making our way forward to reach the 80% target by 14th of November. And now we have a number of questions to attend to. Let's move on with the Q&A session. Also, a gentle reminder to our audience, please feel free to send in your questions and we will try our best to address them now. So let's take a look at the questions that we have here. Okay, there's one from Anne Chua. Her question is,
can
you see the questions, Dato?
Yeah, I'm having some, I don't know why. Give me a minute, let me adjust that.
Yeah, sure, Dato. Okay, Dato?
Okay, yeah, it's okay. I can read it now.
Yes, Dato. Yes. So as you're reading, let me also read it to the audience. Yeah? Since now the trend for every disease is all about vaccine, will too much of it, especially with so much mixture into our body, will actually weaken or impair our own robust or dynamic healthy immune system, especially for kids since they are so young. And many young people now has autoimmune diseases. All this actually has something to do with too much mixture of vaccines, with more vaccine and booster shots to come. And continuing, during clinical trial, all this mixture of vaccines and boosters are not being considered, hence nobody knows how accurate are the safety of every new vaccine being developed.
Okay.
Yes,
all this, I think, is related to the children's vaccine, which has given the loads of vaccines. Vaccines are good, actually. More and more diseases that we are going to come across. As I said, you're going to get a bunch of diseases that are really going to need fast action. And if we have this technology like the mRNA vaccines, this is going to be very, very helpful. It's going to be very fast. You're going to be able to get things fast. So I think your concern is in children. For example, what happens, we give too many vaccines, and would it affect? Well, we've been doing it for many years now. We've been giving vaccine for children. Now we have Penta, 5 vaccines in one. There's going to be 6, 8. So the vaccines, as I said, you have your cells to remember that virus. So the vaccines are not bad. Imagine vaccines as something, your soldiers, you're developing your soldiers. Why do you exercise? Why do you take good food, oranges, apples, and or stay away from harmful? Because you're building your immunity. So vaccines are actually building your immunity. What it does is it produces these soldiers that are going around and protecting you against organisms that are very lethal. Now we're not going to make vaccines for trivial. Somebody's dog is not happy with my answer. So we're not going to make trivial vaccines. It has to be as I said, the risk and the benefit. In a nutshell, I would say is don't worry about it. Studies have been done, and there is none to show that giving these vaccines is going to affect your immune system in any way whatsoever. It is definitely not going to weaken your immune system. Okay, I hope that answers it.
Yes, thanks, Dato. And we have another question from Angela K. Hi, Dato. Is hormonal changes common after vaccination? I exercise regularly, however, started gaining weight and breaking out after vaccination.
Okay, and this is a new vaccine. Major concern is, will it kill you? What are the major side effects? So these are real life data collections. So we are collecting you, even if you had got your vaccine in My Sejahtera, you're supposed to key in. A lot of people don't. I did. I had pain, I say I put pain. I had fever, I put fever. So it's actually, you should share this information. Now, does it change your hormones after what happened? Gaining weight and all the other stuff, having breakouts and stuff. There is none that is showing it, but you should share this into the adverse effects of vaccines so that data can be shared in a larger scale. If you're the only one who's having it, it's very unlikely that's because of it. But if a number of people are having it, so it's probably, yeah, it could be one common effect. But as far as I know, I don't think it will affect your hormones to the extent where you're going to put on weight, because there's no effect on hormones at all here. You're talking about the antibodies, you're talking about the T cells. There's no effect on hormones as far as I know.
Okay, thank you, Dato. And moving on to the next question. This is from Hari Raj. Do we need to take another round of vaccination after a few years?
If you ask me now, most probably yes. Not a few years, probably after a year. But you see, I don't believe in recreating the wheel. There's no point in our specialists, and we got really, really brilliant people who are working on it here in the country. But if you look at CDC in America and the Food and Drug Administration, this whole thing about should we get the booster vaccine, should we not get the booster vaccine, there's a lot of science being debated. And the science that's being debated is that the antibodies wane after some time. However, having said that, there's a very interesting question that one of the the very senior scientist there is asking the question: what antibody are you talking about? Are you talking about the antibody that's generally in your body, or are you talking about the T cells? They are unable to measure the T cells as to now, so we don't know whether you really need booster. That is why in America, only those 60 or 65 and above they're being vaccinated, and people who have comorbidities and people who have that. But if you look in country like Israel, they have started giving boosters to everyone, even in Jakarta, because they found that this specific type of vaccine, people were getting reinfected, so they started giving vaccines, booster doses. So very, very likely, not in a few years, probably in a year or so, you will. But nothing to worry about. That's the important thing to remember.
Okay, thanks, Dato. And moving on to the next question by Laila Mogu. Hi, Dato. I'm a 30-year-old woman. Is the COVID-19 vaccine safe for gastritis patient?
At the moment, there is none that I've read of. It's very safe. There's nothing. When you're going to get a vaccine, you meet a doctor. You don't meet a nurse. You don't meet other healthcare. You meet a doctor, and the doctor is going to ask you, what problems do you have? You're going to give a list of your problems and the list of your medication, and we have a perfect list there, what you can and cannot take and when it should be. And I can tell you, it's very safe for almost everyone, except if you have a serious allergy with any of the ingredients of the vaccine. So gastritis, you're fine. I think you should get the vaccine.
Okay, and another question by Laila Mogusa. How accurate is the result obtained from self-test COVID-19 kit?
Okay, not related to vaccine, but I'll answer this. It is not very accurate, but it is good enough. Meaning that if I look at it, in some of the test kits, it's written that it is 90% sensitive. Sensitive means that it is able to identify correctly that you are infected. So actually, it's very high. It's 90%. It is not that PCR thing that everybody's doing, but PCR is just not a good idea. But I always suggest people that if you've come in close contact with someone, first thing is, isolate yourself, quarantine yourself, do that self-test. If it comes back negative, if it comes back positive, you are definitely, very, very highly likely with a close contact and that, so you're having it. But if it comes back negative, repeat it after 3 days. I always advocate that, and true enough, even there was someone who was negative and the daughter was positive. I said, test it 3 days later, and true enough, it was positive. So give 3 days later and then have a look. So as I said, because it's testing the antigen and or the antibodies there, so it gives it a bit of time before it is able to detect the quantity or the load that is required. Okay.
Okay, Dato. I think that answers Miss Leila Mogu's questions. And we have another question by Angela K. How does the booster shot help to strengthen our immune system?
I think I've covered that in the lecture. What it does is it starts off with, getting your vaccine, your antibodies up and getting that T memory cells to remember. And then that is the prime. And then when you give the second dose, they're usually very ready. But we do not know with COVID, as I said, this is very controversial. CDC, FDA, or do you follow what some European country, or do you follow what our neighbors are doing, or do you follow what Israel is doing? But basically, booster doses are, if you got hepatitis vaccine, like all medical doctors like us need hepatitis vaccine. So we usually get tested and look at the antibodies that are there, that, if it starts dropping, we quickly get a booster dose. So here, what do we measure? So do you measure just the antibodies or you measure the T? So I like this question was when they said that, does this T, are we looking at the T cells? Are we really looking what we should be looking at? So that probably is thing that, as we get further, that we're going to see that, do we really need boosters and when do we need boosters? But we most probably will need boosters. But boosters is just to remind back that memory cells that you had, the antibodies, because they forget. It's been such a long time. I had, any problems that, they tend to get, lay back and just relax and forget about things. So you got to nudge them, hey, get up, wake up, you still got to be, you're still on duty. So that's what boosters basically they do. But again, when do we do it? The science is still, we're still collecting the data, and I think that will take a bit of time. Okay, next.
Okay, Dato. There is this one long question from Izzat Azmir Ahmad. Let me read it out to you. Good evening, Dato. I have two questions. The first one, from a public health point of view, what is your opinion on vaccination mandates imposed by governments towards certain group of population? Example, mandatory vaccination policies for frontline workers and public servants. We'll answer the first one first.
You live in a society. We have to follow the society. I have this joke about students when I tell them about society. You can walk, topless or nude in Bondi Beach in Australia. Nobody says anything because the society accepts it. You try doing it in Batu Ferringhi, you'll get, hauled up. You live in a society. You follow rules of that society. If the society feels that, this is what we're going to do to protect our community, then we have to do it. And if the science is showing that such a thing that we need it, then we need it. You have traffic lights, green, red, and you don't decide one day and say, nah, you know what, I'm not going to follow that red. There's no car, I want to go. I don't care what you think. because it is my right, my car, my body. You don't do that because you are going to cause an accident that's going to hurt others. So if you don't want to get vaccinated, there's a higher risk of you transmitting the infection and you becoming infected, and you might end up in a hospital and using space where we have other serious illnesses as well to treat. We can't drop heart problems, diabetes, kidney problems, and just everything is about COVID. We can't do that. We need to move on. And if we have a solution, if we have something that we can control the infection, then you live in a society. You have to follow what society says. Okay?
Okay, Dato. And let me
I know we're running
see.
out of time a bit, so you gotta pick and
Yeah.
choose.
Can we take one last question? One last question. There's this one from June Kelly. Does having many side effects to vaccine means it is taking effect inside our body, or just our immune system are just weak?
No. This is a very good question. Because I'm like you. People get confused and say, "Oh, you're public health specialist, and you this and that." Listen, I'm just another human being. When I got vaccinated, and this was silly of me was after 4 hours I went back to work, and nothing happened actually. And then I started thinking to myself, it's like, oh God, I hope it's working, I hope my body is working. Because one of the ways that it shows you working is when your body, you will have this slight feverish, you get tired, you have pain in the site where you get vaccinated. And the system, that you want it to happen, and it didn't happen. And it actually did happen. It happened at night, and then I was feeling feverish, tired, body ache, but I was smiling, and I was happy to myself. Yes, it's working. But in some people, you don't get much. You get very mild that they don't even notice it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the vaccine is working. Some people have different responses to how the vaccine is working in your body. That's all. So even I had the same thing. So it's nothing there. Even I had that thing. Is is this something going on? Is it not working? Or so I think a lot of people have that question because they say, "Hey, I never had any problem. Is it working? Is it?" So don't worry about that. Just trust in the vaccine. Let the vaccine do its job. It's doing your job. Your body is doing its job internally. So don't be too concerned that it doesn't mean your immunity is low. If you're having symptoms, it doesn't mean that it is not working or is working. You just got to trust the vaccines and let the vaccine do its job. And don't worry about it. It's a small number of people who actually might not respond to the vaccine, because it is not 100%. Even 95% means 5%. You might not respond to the vaccine as much as we would like it to. So that is yes, but not by you cannot judge by the signs and symptoms that you might have.
Okay. And thank you so much, Dato Rashid, for your time today. Unfortunately, due to the time constraint, there's still many questions unanswered, and we'll address them offline via email. So with this particular episode of the Keynote Speaker Series, we wanted to provide you, the audience, with essential information on the vaccination phase that is currently ongoing in Malaysia, with the details coming directly from Dato Rashid, the subject matter expert. Moment, I believe, based on the COVID Now portal, we are still at 19 million, quite a long way to go, it seems. And with that, we have reached the end of today's event. If you have any other questions, you can email us at enquiry@rcsiucd.edu.my. And once you leave, you'll receive a short survey on today's keynote session, and we would appreciate if you would complete that and provide us your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 hours with a link to view a recording of today's event. And finally, on behalf of RCSI UCD Malaysia campus and our speaker, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. Till we see you in another insightful keynote session, take care and stay safe. Thank you so much, Dato. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.